Okay, so today we are talking about why should we need a guru if the Vedas explain themselves? I mean, don't we have the scriptures, and isn't that enough? So we're going to explore this concept a little bit, and we'll see where we get with it. Um, Why do we need a guru when the Vedas explain themselves? So we can think about this idea for a minute. Um, why does somebody have to be a teacher? Why are, I mean, the Vedas actually explain a lot. Of course, we also have Prabhupada's purports, so someone can say, well, we have not only the Vedas, but we have the explanation that Prabhupada gave us of the Vedas. We look at Bhagavad Gita, every verse basically has a purport to explain a little bit more about it. And we have the same thing in Bhagavatam. So then why should we think about having a guru? And let me ask our group here. We'll start off with a little bit of back and forth. Why should we have a guru? Anybody have any ideas right off the bat?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
A guru gives direct instructions, and you have a more intimate connection with the guru. So you have, the relationship that you have with a guru is more intimate, and they can give you specific instructions that you need to progress, or what you need to guide you personally. Whereas the literatures that we are reading or studying are for everyone. So the guru would be like specific to you as an individual person.
Yeah, that's very good. That's actually one of the things that I thought, one of them. Anybody have any other ideas of why we actually need a teacher?
Hey, Hare Krishna Maharaj ji.
Uh-huh.
We need Guru to take us closer to Krishna.
How does he do that exactly?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena seveya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. So we have to do the service to the Guru. We have to ask humbly. We have to follow on the instructions of the Guru. And since it is said by Krishna himself, that's why we have to have a Guru. Krishna is saying that.
Yeah. That's one of the major points, that it isn't up to us. Krishna created the system for how we get back to the spiritual world. So to do that, we have to follow the system that somebody else made up. And Prabhupada didn't make it up, and Bhaktisiddhanta didn't make it up. And it started originally with Krishna, that one needs a guru. So to follow the Vedas, in the Vedas it says you need the guru. So that's an important part of it. Any other reasons why we might need a guru? I'm going to see how far we get.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam.
Yeah.
I feel to maintain discipline and the sense of, for one to be very conscious of the fact that you're reporting to someone, you need a guru so that you are walking, you're maintaining your, it's just like having a teacher in a class, They're making sure that when the teacher is there, you do your homework properly. When teacher's not there, you tend to slack. So I feel you need a guru for that reason, who can basically maintain that sense of
good. We're
something
getting
like that.
good. We're getting a lot of the points that I was thinking about making. Anybody else have any ideas of
Thank you.
anything else that we might need a guru specifically for?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I actually wrote something a while ago about this, and I wanted to share it with you.
Okay.
Just based off of the title, the Bhagavad Gita, if we roughly translate that to English, directly to English, it's the Song of God. And, I see it as, from the moment it was spoken to Lord Krishna to Arjuna, it still continues to echo throughout eternity for us to hear. Just like, when Krishna blew the conch shells and the son of Pandus, it vibrated the sky and the earth, and it shattered the heart of the evil and ignorant. So if it's called a song of God, and that would make it a musical composition. And a musical composition is intended to be heard just as the composer intended. And a musical student must learn that the notes of that song from a bona fide instructor. Otherwise, if the student learns from an unlearned instructor, then one note can change the whole meaning of the song. So that was just my interpretation of it.
Okay, good. We're actually getting a lot of the same points that I was planning to speak about, so it's good. Let me just go here to the next slide. That I had planned here. First of all, we can think about it as somebody mentioned. Like a teacher in a school. What function does a teacher do in a school? Every class or every kind of particular type of learning or subject matter in a college or even in grade school has teachers. So why is that exactly? What does a teacher do that you couldn't get done just with a textbook? So I noticed in the chat there's some more ideas. Somebody said he takes your karma. That's another important part of it, that he takes your karma. So anyone with any final ideas about what it is that the spiritual master does that is special?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my obeisances. As we understand that textbook gives us the theoretical knowledge, but in order to understand that theoretical knowledge in practical terms, we need experience, and experience has to come from a person who's live and can interact with you directly. So teachers impart that experience and makes the theoretical knowledge more practical. And so is the guru, who understand the individuality of the disciple and impart the knowledge in a more practical manner, what he has got from his parampara.
Yeah. Good. So here are some of the ideas that I came up with. These are no one mentioned the first one, at least as far as I could tell. Either maybe they did in the chat. I took a quick look at the chat, but it's sometimes my poor little brain can't focus on what people are saying and what's going on in the chat at the same time. But at any rate, here is some of the reasons I came up with, and you all pretty much came up with most of these reasons yourselves. One of the important things is mistakes. If you misunderstand a book, the book can't tell you that you misunderstood it. You will just continue. And actually, this is exactly why most people in India who study the Vedas have no clue of what's really required or what Krishna really wants. Because early on, they generally studied the Vedas under their own way of understanding things, and as they went along they made various misunderstandings of various aspects of the Vedas, and because they started with some misunderstandings, those misunderstandings got bigger and bigger, and the whole thing got cloudier and cloudier. But since they spend a lot of time with it, now they're committed to those mistakes. So it's hard to change somebody's mind when they have very much stayed with the mistakes they made in the very beginning. And now they continue those same mistakes. And somebody says, no, no, that's a mistake. And they say, well, who are you to tell me? I've studied the Vedas already for so many years. I'm just as good as you. So you're saying what I'm saying is a mistake, but I think what you're saying is a mistake. So this is, I think, one of the biggest reasons why we need a guru, is he can see that we think we've understood, but we actually have not understood. He's able to recognize we've made a mistake. Somebody in the chat mentioned that we need the mercy of the guru. Yeah, so that's a very important point. That's getting spiritual knowledge is not just about downloading some information like we do in college for a particular final exam or a midterm or something like that. We need mercy to understand the transcendental knowledge. So the spiritual master asks Krishna to give us mercy. If we get that mercy, then we can understand it. Of course, as someone else said, you guys are pretty sharp here. So remove sins, that spiritual master removes our karma. So with the wrong karma, we can hear the right thing, but we won't believe it, or we won't understand it, or we maybe believe it and understand it, but we can't follow it. So this is why we need, someone to remove the karma or remove the sin, And then, as someone else said, he's like a doctor who applies a prescription. You can go into a drugstore, and Prabhupada has used this example, that there are many different kinds of medicines in a drugstore, but which one's right for you? That's the important thing. They're all good, depending on what the disease is and how bad the disease is. But we need a doctor. We need a prescription. We have to have somebody actually understand right now what we should be focused on. So somebody also mentioned that, And finally, to give perspective. That's, I think, one of the most important parts, that we're learning so many things at once, but many times we learn things but in the wrong perspective. We take something that's not a big deal and we think it's a big deal, and we take something that is an actual big deal and we think it's something trifling, So that's another thing that the guru does that we don't know. Each one of us comes to spiritual life with a preconceived idea of the world. And we know that the material world is full of misconceptions. We have misconceptions. Our parents had misconceptions. The country we live in has misconceptions. And so when we start learning spiritual knowledge, it's not just learning things, it's destroying previous things that we thought were correct but are actually false. So the guru gives us prescription, and he gives us perspective. He tells us what's good for us right now, and he also tells us what's important and what's not important. And he sees when we are trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, but we have the wrong premise, we have the wrong foundational thinking. And because we have the wrong premise or the wrong foundational thinking, we've got a wrong perspective, and that's why we can't understand it. So he clears that up. And as Mayapur Chandra said, that I didn't put this on here, but it's very important. And the fact is that we need a guru because Krishna says we do. So, Krishna took one himself even though he didn't need it. Lord Chaitanya also took a guru even though he didn't need it. So it's not our idea to, decide on a guru. We are being asked by Scripture to do it. So, any questions about that we just discussed about the basic reasons why we need a guru. Anybody have any questions about it or anything else to add? All right. So let's look at some really important verses about guru. This is our first one. Since I'm doing some research into the idea of a guru, this is probably the most often quoted and the most kind of basic verse about having a guru, and it's Tasmad Gurun Prapadyeta Jigyeshu Shreyamuttamam Shabde Parecha Nishnatam Brahmane Upasamashrayam. So this is 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd chapter, verse 21. And the meaning is, therefore, any person who seriously desires real happiness must seek a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of the bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, should be understood to be bona fide spiritual masters. So, in this verse, we have two things. We are learning that, as Mayapur Chandra said a minute ago, that Krishna is suggesting we take a guru. So it's not our idea, it's Krishna's idea. And here we're hearing in 11th canto, 3rd chapter, this is probably the, I didn't look at it, but I think it's probably the Navi Yogendra is talking to Maharaj Nimi, but maybe it's something else. So anyone who wants happiness has to seek out a guru. And if you seek out a guru and get initiated by a guru, then your progress of spiritual life can start. So, and then the second part of this particular verse tells us that, well, what is the qualification of a guru? He has seen or understood the conclusions of the scriptures, and he's able to convince others of those conclusions. So, Tasmad Gurun Prapadyeta Jigeshu Shreyam Uttamam Shabde Parecha Nishnatam Brahmani Upasamashrayam. Therefore, any person who seriously desires real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of the bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusions of the scripture by deliberation and is able to convince others of those conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, should be understood to be bona fide spiritual masters. All right, so any questions about that? This is probably one of the key verses. There's a book, and that book is called The Spiritual Master and the Disciple. So The Spiritual Master and Disciple was compiled by a devotee named Subhananda many years ago, some, I think, 15, 20 years ago or more. And it's just a collection of all the quotes in Prabhupada's various lectures, in his purports, in the scripture itself, wherever, So we can see that the topic of guru, there are enough quotes just about the topic of guru that it makes an entire book, Not a small book either. It's a fairly good sized book, It's pretty big. And this book is got quite a number of pages in it because it was a key bit of Krishna consciousness. Why do we need a guru? Exactly what does the guru do? And how do we understand, how to accept a guru? If we don't know what the qualifications are of guru, we could accept someone who's not actually a guru. Maybe the person doesn't is not part of the parampara. The guru hasn't got a guru himself, or he's part of some non-Vaishnav parampara. In other words, he's following some other idea of scripture. Or maybe the guru has somehow or other fallen out of grace with his own spiritual master, or has misunderstood. So how do we learn, who is a bona fide guru? Well, here we've heard that he must have seen the conclusions of scripture and be able to convince others of those conclusions. So if somebody has actually understood scripture and somebody puts forward some mundane argument, then the guru should be able to take a look at that mundane argument and explain what's not correct about it. And, there are people who will never change their mind no matter what you say, but someone who is actually searching and is a little sincere, if they see that they have made a mistake, they will change. So that's a quality that the person who's a genuine guru can bring out. They can change the mental attitude if the person that they're talking to has misunderstood. He's able to say, no, it's not like that, it's like this, and that will change things. So I'm going to move here to the next verse. That's a very key verse in the understanding of who is guru. Tad vigyanartam sagurumi vabigat chet samit pani shrotriyam brahmanishtam. So anybody know what that verse means? I'm just taking it maybe you all took a look at the translation already, but tad vigyanartam sagurum evabigat chet samat pani shrotriyam brahmanishtam. What does that verse mean? All of our pundits here and the staff here in the Zoom. Beep. Time's up. So here it is. To learn transcendental subject matter, one must approach the spiritual master. In doing so, he should carry fuel to burn in a sacrifice. The symptoms of such a spiritual master is he is expert in understanding Vedic conclusions, therefore he constantly engages in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the Mundaka Upanishad, first canto, second chapter, text 12, Tad vigyanartam sagurumi babegach chet. So I think Prabhupada says babegach chet is the Vidileen construction in Sanskrit, which means that it's absolutely obligatory that one must approach a spiritual master. And of course, don't forget to bring the firewood. So next time you go to meet your guru, be sure you've got some firewood on hand. But actually, in our modern day, we usually don't bring firewood. But that's the way the verse is, because in older times, then one would go to meet the spiritual master, and the spiritual master would engage in some sacrifice, and the disciple would help him in that sacrifice. So our next verse here is a very interesting verse. This one comes from the Mahabharata. Tarko pratishta shruyato vibhinna nasa rishir yasya matam nabhinam dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yenagata sapanta. Dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans advocate. So, anybody know who's speaking in this verse? Who's our person that verse is from the Mahabharata, so that gives you a little clue, maybe. Who's the...
Yudhishthira Maharaj?
What's that?
Yudhishthira Maharaj?
Yes, who's speaking there?
Ram Tulsidas.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's correct. It's Yudhishthira. Do we know who he's speaking to?
Maybe to his brothers. I don't know.
Okay. He's speaking to the mysterious Yaksha, who actually turns out to be his father, So this is Yudhishthira, and the story goes that all the Pandavas were very thirsty. One of them climbed to the top of a tree, I think Sahadev or Nakula, I forget which one of them it was, and they saw a place somewhere distant. This was during the Battle of Kurukshetra, and so they saw some water birds, and so they felt, well, wherever there's water birds, there must be some water. So they sent, I think, Sahadev first to bring some water for the rest of them. So Sahadev left, and he never came back. And so the other brothers are thirsty, and they're wondering what happened. So they sent Nakula, and then Nakula goes to see, bring some water back, and he doesn't come back. And then, then they send Arjuna, and Arjuna goes, and he doesn't come back. And now there's just Bhima and Yudhishthira, and he sends Bhima. And Bhima goes, and he doesn't come back. So Yudhishthira is just sitting them by himself, and he's wondering, what could possibly be going on here? My brothers are so powerful, and they're not, prone to spacing out. So what could be going on over there? So he goes, finally, to see what's been happening. And when he comes to the pond where the water is, he sees all his brothers are lying dead. And he thinks, who could have possibly killed them? They're so powerful. It means now that we've certainly lost the Battle of Kurukshetra. All my powerful brothers are gone. And so he's beside himself in grief, and he doesn't know what to think. And then, as he's thinking, a mysterious voice says, I am the owner of this pond, and you cannot drink from this water unless you answer my questions. And your brothers, I asked them to answer my questions, but they refused. And they tried to drink the water by force without answering my questions, so I have killed them all. And so Yudhishthira said, well, what are your questions then? You want your questions answered? Tell me what they are. And so the mysterious voice is a Yaksha. Of course, later on it's revealed that this Yaksha is actually his father, Yamaraj, But the Yaksha asks all these mysterious questions, and one of them is, the question of how do we know the actual truth in the world? And this is Yudhishthira's answer to the question that we just, read here, this verse, Dry arguments are inconclusive. This is how Yudhishthira answers. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path. So then how do you come to the right path? And then this is the answer. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans advocate. So this again is pointing to what? Pointing towards the fact that we need a spiritual master. Tarko means dry arguments. Pratishta means dry arguments don't stand. Shruyato means the Vedas. Shruya is Shruti. Vibhina means that they're multi-branched. So if we just try to understand the truth by argument, we won't understand it. If we study the Vedas, we'll get lost in the various different prescriptions that are there in the Vedas. And then the third line, nasa vrishir yasya matam nabinam, that a person who is a great speaker or a great philosopher is not considered distinguished unless he says something different from previous philosophers. And of course, that's a perfect explanation of Western philosophy. Each philosopher says something that trashes the previous philosophers. And so we can see that we can't find the truth in any of these three ways. If we just try arguments, we won't find the truth. If we try to study the Vedas, we get lost in their different interpretations and different methods of approach. And if we follow some great yogi or some great meditator or some great philosopher, we'll see that each one of them has their own version of how to approach the absolute truth. So none of those ways will work. But what does work, dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena gata sabanta. The truth of dharma is hidden in the heart, guhyam, of the Mahajan, one who is actually a great devotee. And so we have to follow the path of the Mahajans. So this is from, of course, as you see here, Mahabharata, Vanaparva, chapter 313, verse 117. This is Yudhishthira and the Yaksha. So Tarko pratishta shruyato vibhina nasa vrishir yasya matam navinam dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam vahajano yena gata sapanta. So again, we come around to the idea of how crucial a guru is, because as it's saying there, shruyato vibhina, the Vedas appear to say different things. One can read the Vedas, and we have, quite a number of people who are Vedic scholars who will say, no, you like bhakti, but I like gyan. Or, no, you like bhakti, but I'm following karma kanda. I am following the various karmic prescriptions. Or I am a meditator. I'm doing yoga practice. And do these things exist in the Vedas? Sure. These are listed in the Vedas. But we don't accept them as being important, because Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to give them all up. Sarva dharma prityaja mame kam sharanam vrajaham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshishyami ma shuchaha. And in the first 6 chapters, Krishna is going through these various types of approaches to spiritual life that are listed in the Vedas, and at the end of the 6th chapter, he says, that one just has to become, think of me. That's the best yogi, the one who is always thinking of me. Madgaten antaratmanam shradabam bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mattaha. So that's how Krishna ends it up. And he says, the verse just before that the yogi is better than the meditator, he's better than the jnani, he's better than the person performing austerity. So become a yogi. And then after that, he says, of all yogis, the one who always thinks of me, who's engaged in service to me, always thinking about me, such a person is the highest of all. So he's saying that bhakti yoga is the best. So all these systems are there in the Vedas. All these systems are there in the Vedas. But bhakti is the most important system. So if you study a lot about the Karmakanda sections, or you study a lot about meditational yoga, or you study a lot about Gyan, and try to merge with the Brahman, these things are not what Krishna is recommending. They're certainly mentioned in the Vedas because they're better than living a life of sinful desire, of engaging in all kinds of adharmic and sinful activities. Certainly better than that. But they're not what Krishna really recommends. It's there in the Vedas. So this is why a person needs a guru. And is it any wonder that many people who are scholars in India have the wrong idea about what the Vedas are really recommending? And some will say, I'm following Jnana, I'm following karma, I'm following yoga, I'm following this, I'm following that. And they've got it all wrong, or they've got a lesser conclusion. So we're not just tooting our own horns, that we're the best, because we want to think that way. But Krishna is making the decision. In Bhagavad Gita, he makes the decision. We're just following it. And if you have a Vaishnava guru, he will make sure that you understand that. If you don't have a Vaishnava guru, you have some other kind of guru, you won't understand that. You'll miss the point. And again, we see what's important about having a guru. Okay, so I've spoken a little bit here. Any questions or feedback from our group here? I'll give you all a chance to think about it and ask any questions that might have arisen, or make some further statements about things that I've been talking about, or at least this subject of guru. Oh, we've got a question on the chat line here. If one feels pressured to take initiation, what should they do? Well, that's a great question. I'm glad somebody asked this question. This is kind of a no-holds-barred, presentation about guru. So we're talking about basic things that maybe, some people are hearing for the first time. And we're also talking about things that are a little bit more into the finer details here. So I think that in general, people take initiation way before they're ready. Did I drop out there? I saw. So I think in general, people take initiation way before they're ready. It's like getting married. You don't get married, in the first 3 or 4 weeks when you meet somebody, generally speaking. So one should actually know what a guru is before one thinks about taking a guru, and before one decides, well, who should be my guru? Although it may be common to feel, sometimes I think the pressure is not really there, it's just imagined, but in some cases it's very real, that some people say, when are you going to get initiated, But we should, I think, resist such pressure. Prabhupada, he didn't get initiated for 11 years, when he first met Bhaktisiddhanta. He was sold on Bhaktisiddhanta as his guru, but he didn't actually get initiated for 11 years. So it's mentioned in the scriptures that the disciple and the guru should test one another. As Prabhupada puts it, they should behave one another. Of course, he means they should watch the behavior of one another. Not only is the guru testing the disciple to see if the disciple is going to be a genuine disciple, or is he's going to flake out the minute that the guru asks him to do something a little difficult. But also the disciple should be testing the guru. And what should he test the guru about? Not like he brings a little piece of paper and says, "Here, guru, I have a test for you, and let me do your marks here. I'll check your answers there. And I'm afraid you failed my test, guru. You can't be my guru." It doesn't work like that. That the disciple should see whether the guru is genuinely following. He's not only speaking the conclusions of the Vedas, what we are reading in Bhagavad Gita, what we are reading in Srimad Bhagavatam. The guru is speaking the same thing. He's not speaking something different. But the guru's own life is an example of the principles of devotional service. He's not doing something else. He's not breaking regular principles or whatever. So in general, then we understand that there should be at least a year. In one place it mentions 3 years, but there should be some sense. And also, out of many people that we meet and help us in spiritual life, some will help us more than others. Those are the people that we should actually make an effort to see, well, maybe this person will be my guru, and then you can approach that person and ask if that person would consider taking you as a disciple. And if you're confused about what a guru is, if you've never really thought about it very much, if someone asks you, well, what is a guru? What do they do? Then all those are reasons not to get initiated, until you're fairly sure what a guru is and what a disciple is and what's expected of a disciple. If you're a disciple, that means the guru will give you certain actions to perform. And pretty much in ISKCON, most gurus give disciples the same things. They should follow 4 regular principles, chant 16 rounds at least, and engage in devotional service. And usually, if you're living in a temple, then the temple president suggests various kinds of service for you and gives you a daily schedule. If you're living outside the temple, then you'll find that when you visit, you may be asked to do various kinds of service. And this is all for your benefit. And the more you take advantage of programs, the more you maybe set up a deity schedule in your own home. All these things help you to get more and more deeply committed and involved in Krishna consciousness. And these things are helped. And if you have a guru, you have someone that helps you with your personal issues that you might run into. Am I doing this too much? Am I doing it not enough? Should I be doing something else? I'm having trouble with this person. Or I've got this problem in my life. How do I solve it? And these are the kind of things that a guru does. So if you're feeling pressured to become initiated, it's probably a good reason to think that maybe you shouldn't be initiated yet. But when you've actually understood Krishna consciousness, you know that there's ultimately no way to make advancement if you are not ready to take a spiritual master, and you understand what a spiritual master is, and you've made a relationship with someone, then it's actually time to get initiated. So in the long run, yes, you will have to get initiated, but it may not be time yet. And if you're confused or you don't know enough about gurus or all that kind of thing, then it's probably better that you don't get initiated right away. Any other questions?
So Maharaj, as you were mentioning that there are different kind of gurus. Some guru can have a conclusive saying that okay, jnana is the conclusion of the Vedas, right? So all his disciples maybe follow that, right? And we as practicing devotional service, we might say bhakti is the entire conclusion. So like, how this devotees, like, who are following those guru, like, how they can transform themselves and come to the bhakti yoga, or it is okay for them to stay wherever they are in their conclusions.
Well, of course, if someone's following a lesser path, then we can explain to them that bhakti is really the ultimate path that Krishna is recommending. It's not our opinion. We're not just standing on our own, chauvinistic idea that we're doing the best thing. It's Krishna's ultimate conclusion. It's there in Bhagavad Gita, as we said. If you read chapter 6, the last verses, Krishna's summing up all the things he's talked about, and he's saying what he wants Arjuna to do. And it's not karma or jnana or yoga, it's actually bhakti. Okay, so if the person is able to hear that and appreciate that, then they can realize that their guru was not actually their final guru, their guru to lead them to the spiritual world. Because if you follow karma perfectly, you will not go back to the spiritual world. If you follow jnana perfectly, you will not go back to the spiritual world. And if you follow yoga, you may, if you're lucky, get to the level of Shanta Ras, but even that's debatable. Depends on what your teacher's like, whether that's what he's actually teaching, which most yogis don't teach. They teach actually how to get various kinds of mystic powers. So whatever anybody is following, you can always talk to people by approaching them by saying, well, what's the most important thing? And, a person will probably be surprised by that question. But it's a good pivotal question, because depending on what a person answers, what's the most important thing, is what their ultimate direction in life is. It's kind of like the way the rudder is pointed in a boat, you know which direction that boat's going to go. It may not get there today, but if you ask a person what's the ultimate most important thing in life, and most people will answer something completely mundane, like, to have a family, or to, get mukti, whatever that means. For most people, they don't even know what the word mukti really means. It's some kind of mystical situation, or to become wealthy or powerful or whatever. We know these are all mundane things, But if they're able to hear it, if they're not, you can know right away that if they're not able to take any suggestion that there might be something higher than what they're talking about, then, you can leave them be. Because ultimately, people have to decide for themselves whether they want to follow a higher path or they want to stay. Sometimes people following karma or jnana are just committed. And Prabhupada talks about that in the purports. He says, there's a yoga ladder that's described in the Bhagavad Gita. It's not called that in the Bhagavad Gita, but Burijan, in his Surrender Unto Me book, he talks about the yoga ladder. And so each step on the yoga ladder, there's a higher principle. And a person who's committed to, say, karma yoga, then that's the step that he's on, karma yoga step. And there may be somebody on the jnana yoga step, which is higher than the karma yoga step. But that's still not the ultimate top step. And so as long as they're identified with that, and they're happy only with some material conclusion, then it's hard to, convince somebody to go another step. But if they've finally seen that there must be something better, or you can open them to that idea, then they can change to what actually is worthwhile. So that's a good question.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody's asking, There are many opinions about Ritvik philosophy. How does one understand in the right context on what Srila Prabhupada mentioned about being a disciple of initiating guru? Oh, that's good. Good question, too. These are good questions. Now, it's a really thoughtful group here. There are people who try to understand Krishna and Prabhupada by putting what Krishna and Prabhupada says in the right context. We try to understand what they said when they said it and what context it's in. And then there are people who try to pull things out of context, and they make something appear to signify something that it never signified. And this is kind of common, I'm afraid, not only in ISKCON, but I think in a lot of spiritual organizations, to take things out of context. And this is one of the things that I was talking about earlier, of the guru putting things in perspective. We have to know what are the major principles of spiritual life. So there are major principles that never change under any circumstances, at any time, at any place. And there are things that are not major principles. They are, what we could call applications of those principles. In other words, we hear that one, as Prabhupada puts it in, I think it's 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that you have the principle that one has to accept a spiritual master. But exactly how one serves the spiritual master, that's a detail. So we learn how one can serve the spiritual master as a detail. But if we confuse those two, or we turn something that was never intended to be a major philosophical point into a major philosophical point, then we've made a misconclusion. Or on the other side of the coin, if we take something that actually is an important principle and we try to philosophize it away, then that's also a mistake. So it requires associating with the right people, and it requires also studying the scripture with trying to understand the context in which things are said. We hear over and over again that one needs a spiritual master. We hear that that needs to be a living spiritual master. Certainly we can get various kinds of inspiration from Srila Prabhupada. There's no doubt that we can get inspiration. But nowhere do we find anybody who's ever been initiated by a guru who was not living. We don't find that anywhere. We don't see it in scripture. We don't see it in history. Yet that's what Ritviks are suggesting, that just because we like Prabhupada, we can be initiated by Prabhupada. Or that somebody connects us with Prabhupada, but they're not really our spiritual master. They're just a Ritvik. They're connecting us with Prabhupada. Certainly, the person who initiates us should try to connect us with Prabhupada. That's what we say. But that person also, in a very real sense, is now our guru. He's not just a connector. He's someone who is trying to explain Prabhupada to us. So the Ritviks kind of only have some influence on people who really are not taking the time to understand differences between things. You can have an inspiration from somebody, and someone can be your Shiksha guru, and someone can be a prominent Shiksha guru, which is what Prabhupada certainly is, but still one needs a Diksha guru. A Diksha guru has to be living. He can't be someone who's not living. Because, you can say, as the Ritviks do, that Prabhupada's in his books, but then, as we just mentioned, that if you have a book, how will you know that you haven't misunderstood the book? If you've misunderstood the book won't tell you. And so that's the problem with Ritvik philosophy. Everybody thinks they understand what Prabhupada said, but they all have different opinions, and there's no one to disabuse them of their mistaken opinion. And so, again, it takes some maturity and some effort to read the literature that Prabhupada has given us. You know, we hear over and over that one needs a spiritual master, but we never hear that one needs a spiritual master that's not living. You know, of course, all the sages and all the previous acharyas of our parampara system, they are all people who we can take inspiration from and we can be guided by. There's nothing wrong with that. But still, someone needs a living person who can, like a doctor, give them up-to-the-minute, right now instruction, which is the actual purpose, usually, of the Diksha Guru. Some cases it may not be the Diksha Guru, it may be some other Shiksha Guru in our lives, but generally speaking, that's the Diksha Guru. And then someone's asking, I want to take initiation, but I'm afraid, what if I will not be able to keep my vows? Currently I chant 16 rounds. Right. So this is, I think, a common fear. I think I had that fear when I was trying to get initiated. I think everybody has that fear. However, that shouldn't stop us, that if we worry that, well, until I'm certain that I'll never fall down, then I'll take initiation, that may never happen. I mean, certainly, if we're talking about you've been in Krishna consciousness for a couple of months and you're worried, yeah, then maybe it is worthwhile to take another year before you decide, you know, to get initiated. But if you've already been following Krishna consciousness, if you've been chanting 16 rounds for at least a year, that's a good indication you'll probably be able to continue to chant them. If you've had some, days where you slip, but you made it up the next day, then that's also okay, although it's not the best thing in the world. But, if for at least, 6 months or a year you've been chanting 16 rounds, or if you didn't chant, you made it up the next day, then that's a good reason to think that probably you'll be able to continue from that point onwards. And it's worth taking the risk. There's no situation in the world where you're not taking some risk, so we don't know the future. Anything could happen, but we go by the present and we make our best calculation, and then we leave it in Krishna's hands. If we're sincere, as we become more fixed and determined in Krishna consciousness, then we shouldn't have any difficulty with chanting or maintaining our vows. Okay, so this is good. We've had a lot of good back and forth here. What's the time on this? Ram Tulsi, how have I already probably gone over time? We got off on the wrong foot with this video audio problem, but
yeah, we can continue unless Mara's wants to.
Somebody have a question there, or somebody just left their phone unmuted? So I have a couple more slides and we can go through them really quickly, unless we're over time and we should cap this off. You tell me.
Yeah, we can, how many slides, Maharaj?
I won't spend a lot of time with them. I'll just bring them up. So we'll do this here quickly. And then we'll consider this to be a completed presentation. Of course, the subject of Guru is quite broad, as you all know. But here's another important verse, Ado Gurvashrayam, and this is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. if one is interested in Krishna consciousness or God consciousness, he must approach a spiritual master. So this is very important saying. Prabhupada quotes this quite a number of times, but I couldn't find where he quoted it exactly where it is in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And then, of course, we have this quote here, Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yata Devi Tatagorao Tasyaite Katita Hyarta Prakashanti Mahatmana. Unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. So we have faith in the Supreme Lord, in Krishna and the spiritual master, then the Vedas will be revealed, because the spiritual master is guiding us to understand the Vedas properly and not in some wrong way. And then here, this verse, I wanted to segue into kind of a deeper subject here about the spiritual master. And this is Srimad Bhagavatam 4:21, verses 28 to 29. Idrishanam atanyesham ajayasya tabhavasya cha prahladyasya bales chapi krityam asti gadabhrta. This is confirmed not only by the evidence of the Vedas, but also by the personal behavior of the great personalities like Manu, Uttanapad, Dhruva, Priyavrata, and my grandfather Anga, as well as many other great personalities and ordinary living entities, exemplified by Maharaj Prahlad and Bali, all of whom are theists, believing in the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who carries a club. Now in the purport, Prabhupada says this, Narottam Das Thakur states that one has to ascertain the right path for his activities by following in the footsteps of great saintly persons and books of knowledge under the guidance of a spiritual master, Sadhu Sastra Guru Vakya. And sometimes Prabhupada finishes that up with Tine Te Aikya, so we also hear this in the Guru Vandanam prayer, something similar to this. So this brings us to our final slide here, which is this Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So if we're ever in doubt, these three things reaffirm one another and they clarify one another. How do we know who's Guru? Because he's saying the same thing as Shastra and Sadhus say. Which sadhus? Sadhus are those in the Vaishnav line, not some other yogis or rishis or meditators or whatever. What's Shastra? That's the Vedic Bhakti literatures. We're not so much interested in the Rig, Sama, and Atharva Veda. We're interested in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So, if we don't understand something in Shastra, we ask the Guru. If we want to know who the Guru is, we take a look at what Shastra says, and we see if the Guru is saying the same thing. If we want to know also if a group or a Sangha is good for us, we confer with Guru and Sadhu, and with Guru and Shastra. So we can tell if a Sangha is good for us by understanding that the Guru also endorses that Sangha, and the Shastra endorses that Sangha. It's a Sangha of people who are Vaishnavas. And so therefore, all these three things connect with one another. And as we read in the last verse, the sadhus, who are they? They're the Mahajans, the previous acharyas, and they give us the same conclusion. So if we want to know what Shastra is saying and we're a little confused, we can see what the Guru says, and we can see if the Guru is saying the same thing that the previous acharyas say. And we can also understand who a Guru is because he's coming in disciplic succession. And that again is sadhu. In other words, the Guru's following the sadhus, the disciplic succession. So these three things, they interact with one another. And if something is lining up with Guru and Sadhu and Shastra, then we don't have any doubts anymore that this is what Krishna is actually saying. Because we have confirmation from Guru, from Sadhu, and from Shastra. So there are times where we need to know when to use these to help us. If, like I say, if we find that we're confused about what the scripture says, then we can approach Guru. Or we can see what the sadhus say about that issue. If we want to know who is Guru, then we see about the sadhus. Is he in disciplic succession? We see in the Shastras, is the Guru following the Shastras? If we want to know if a proper Sangha is there, we can, once we find the right Guru, we can ask him if that sadhu Sangha is the right Sadhu Sangha for us. And similarly, we can see if the Shastras say that, if that group of sadhus is actually focused on jnana or karma or some other thing, then we know that this particular Sangha is not really good for us. So all these three things, they reaffirm one another and they help us to understand if there's some doubt. So we have to know when to use them and how to use them. All right, so now I'm officially finished, and we can take any final questions and wrap up.
There is no more question. Thank you, Maharaj, for this wonderful session where we have really been down to the very wonderful structure of understanding, why, we really need Guru, to make us understand our mistake, to seek the blessings and mercy. How, we have so much.
46, right?
This qualification we have, removing our sins and giving us the prescription and perspective. So that's we have really aligned the whole conclusion about why you need a guru. Plus, what is the qualification of guru? You point out, why, how we can test a guru? What is a real, who is a real guru for us? And how should we approach, and why we have to approach guru? And also, you have also added a very wonderful point about, we can never go through, we can never come to a conclusion, by dry arguments, because Vedas is so vast, and to come to that conclusion is very, very difficult. But a really realized person can exactly know, what is the right path of the religious principle. And ultimately, you finalize the point that how, we should be this conclusive, reaffirmation that how can we conclude everything what is correct or wrong by this process of the three important Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra, right? This absolute path to understand that this path, how it has to be interdependent. So, and how to test, if this Guru is right, you take the shelter of Sastra, from the Sastra you can, each other you consider that. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, and we are very happy, Maharaj, and finally you came to speak, and we will really want you to come again to give your association.
Well, thank you all for inviting me. I'm happy I had an opportunity to speak to you all. I'm really trying to dig deep into this understanding of spiritual master and disciple, because there's some, as you all may know or maybe don't know, there's some controversy about some of these things. But, I think that it's very important for people to understand the spiritual master. I'm an IDC teacher. I teach the ISKCON Disciples course. We usually offer that once a year in Brooklyn. And it's offered in many other places online and so on and so forth. And I think that devotees should take that course before they choose who their guru is. Usually I find that people take that course after they've already chosen their guru. But it's a good course to help you understand what the guru is in your life and how to approach a guru, and a lot of the questions. And there's so many of them, I think it's very important to try to understand the nature of the spiritual master-disciples relationship. And of course, if you get that book that I mentioned earlier on, this book called The Spiritual Master and Disciple, there's various versions of it around. You know, it was, as I said, compiled by Subhananda. And there's a lot of verses in there about the Guru, so you can see how often Prabhupada refers to it and how much the Vedas even talk about the idea of having a Guru. So, all right. If I think we're kind of at 10 o'clock here, a little after. So I'll end here, and I thank you for the chance to have to speak a little bit about this topic, and I hope it's helped. All glories to your service, and all glories to the Vaishnava devotees.